American vacationers, a youthful couple named Janai and Riley, show up in Iceland to respect the eminent nature and invest some energy alone together. They look into an inn and start their touring with a visit to a geothermal pool. Janai realizes that Riley has burned through the entirety of his reserve funds on this excursion and feels a debt of gratitude. However, Riley doesn't figure he did anything phenomenal. He simply needed to satisfy his cherished. Janai sees that Riley brought his dad's reflex camera and a ton of film. She is shocked that he favors this obsolete innovation over a cutting-edge computerized camera. Yet Riley makes sense of that. He fantasizes about catching the flaws existing apart from everything else, as opposed to having a PC program consequently right every one of the missteps. He concedes he's actually advancing, but he's taking a stab at perfection and vows to take her representation one day. They visit an old church, and a cleric lets them know its set of experiences. The man is persuaded that life in pre-Christian times was less difficult. It was a period of long excursions and revelations. The couple visits the island's milestones, messing about and catching everything on camera. Later, Janai lets Riley know that her dad is an evangelist, and despite the fact that his congregation isn't as lovely, she frequently visited there and obviously trusts in God. They then investigate the Cascades, and Janai is excited by the excellence. They are extremely cheerful and consider the excursion great. Anyway, around evening time, Janai can't rest. It's too brilliant outside. She glances through the window and sees weird glimmers of light somewhere out there, confusing them with an especially splendid aurora borealis. Yet fatigue dominates, and she nods off. In the morning, Riley awakens Janai at 10 o'clock a.m., not seeing the date that showed up on his computerized watch, 2028. Janai, anyway, still resides voluntarily and finds it hard to awaken. The steady sunlight outside is likewise difficult for her. In any case, she somehow figures out how to get up. The couple heads out for breakfast, yet incidentally, nobody has set it up. As a matter of fact, there's an odd quiet and vacancy. By and large around, there's no indication of the staff nor of different visitors. Riley recommends they go to a bistro in 2 or 3 stages outside. Yet here too, the void downpours. There is certainly not a solitary bystander, albeit the traffic signals work impeccably and the signs over the foundations and shops are splendidly lit. They are confused. Perhaps there is an occasion in the city today, or an occasion. Riley recalls the solstice, an old festival, and contemplates whether every one of the townskin, youthful and old, have gone to it. The couple strolls down a completely abandoned road, periodically yelling, yet there's nobody around. No staff in the shops, and nobody answers their calls. Their own calls additionally go unanswered. Soon, Riley and Janai enter an unfilled bistro where Riley sees a few working TVs. Yet every channel shows everything with the exception of the news. Janai begins to overreact. Riley is similarly confounded. Assuming there was a plague, where are the bodies? Assuming outsiders are to be faulted, where is their boat? There are no new messages or posts on the web, no demonstration at all. They return to their room where Janai keeps on calling her family members and companions, yet all stay quiet. The web works, yet there are no updates. Riley dispatches a world guide view, yet a similar picture is everywhere, vacant urban communities. He takes Janai outside again. Soon, they notice a functioning vehicle, and without having the option to find the proprietor, they essentially take it. The couple cruises all over the city and, in the end, arrives at the congregation. Yet, wherever there is similar quietness and vacancy, then they drive out of the city. Yet it's similar there. Their folks don't answer the calls, just replying mail is working. Wherever they keep on conjecturing about the reasons for what happened. Riley proposes different hypotheses, even the chance of the subsequent coming. Yet Janai is worn out and needs to rest, so they return to their room. In the morning, Riley proposes making breakfast. Yet Janai is totally depleted and doesn't have any desire to move. She fantasizes about leaving the island. Yet how might they do that? And she is additionally tortured by considerations of being picked. Perhaps they were required for something by God. After all, it's difficult to make sense of what happened. In any case, Riley, on the other hand, accepts everything revolves around an infection, and it's very conceivable that the whole populace of the island basically escaped. Riley attempts to stay hopeful. He makes espresso for Janai and afterward takes her to the store, filling the trunks of 2 SUVs with everyday food items. He drives Janai to a house they have picked. Later, they go to a store and select new garments for themselves. Riley makes sense of that the power on the island is controlled by geothermal energy, so in all probability, it will keep on working for a significant length of time until the gear stalls. Riley gives his all to occupy Janai from miserable contemplations. They drink at a bar and afterward play strip games, yet in the morning, they experience the ill effects of headaches. Janai again discusses being tried, yet confidence and religion are not something very similar. And who can say for sure what God has arranged? Anyway, for the present, this world has a place just with them. They keep on visiting the island, and Riley takes pictures of Janai in every one of the grand spots. One day, they track down a geothermal pool and partake in a shower there. Then they have intercourse and rest right on the grass. When she awakens, Janai respects the magnificence of the island's nature while Riley energetically photos her. One day, they go to get food, and keeping in mind that Janai punches oat boxes, Riley, riding a shopping basket, falls and harms his arm. At night, he welcomes Janai to a heartfelt supper. The couple spruces up, and Janai puts on cosmetics. Yet, when they find a seat at the table, she quickly begins a terrible discussion since she can't quit thinking about what occurred during the day, and compels Riley to vow not to jeopardize himself again. After all, what might befall her in the event that something happened to him? They are totally alone here, and nobody can help them. Janai sinks further into sadness. Regardless of Riley's guarantee to deal with himself, she recollects her home, and a book that is extremely dear to her dad. Once, he gave it to her, and she transformed it into a sort of journal, recording the occasions of her life on its clear pages. She even admitted her affection interestingly there, and presently she longs for simply grasping it. Riley advises her that they have one another. Furthermore, they will actually want to get by. After all, humankind's accomplishments are all available to them. Anyway, time elapses, and the food in the stores begins to terminate. Janai is exceptionally irritated by Riley's propensity for eating transitory food varieties, messed up as he doesn't ponder tomorrow by any stretch of the imagination. Soon, the power will run out, which implies there will be no more meat. To this, Riley proposes they take up cultivating and hunting, which just makes Janai snicker. Well, he could shoot a cow, but how would he manage it? Then, Janai progressively meanders around the area alone, and one day, coming to the congregation, she asks the figures around it questions. Perhaps just they have been tossed out of life while every other person is presently at home. For what reason did this happen to her? Seeing Janai's terrible state of mind, Riley tries to encourage her. They continue to investigate the island, as he most likely knows its set of experiences very well, and accepts that the core of the earth beats here. Yet, dissimilar to Riley, Janai doesn't feel the extraordinariness of this spot. One day, he shows her the old remaining parts of a plane he found while investigating the region. Riley calls it wonderful, yet Janai sees it just as an indication of the dead world. They now occupy its garbage, very much like them, and nobody will come for them. An angry Janai drives away, but later returns for Riley, who is smoothly resting in the destruction of the plane. Now, Riley invests increasingly more energy in the vacant city roads, capturing all that appears to be fascinating to him. Then, he discards the film since there's nowhere to develop it. He wanders the shops and, one day, recalls that if the power runs out, there will be no water in the house. He gathers every one of the essential things in a tool shop and brings them back home. One day, missing-mindedly entering a lift, he overreacts when the doors close. After all, nobody will actually want to find him if the power goes out. Meanwhile, Janai goes to the film and cries as recollections flood over her. Riley sets up a water assortment framework with a wind-powered engine in the yard, and Janai finds an unwanted ranch and rides a pony. Later, she pays attention to the voice messages from companions and family members saved on her telephone. Then she takes Riley to a position in the field she enjoys. She is astounded that Riley continues to capture everything, but he guarantees that he will figure out how to develop the film. Janai calls attention to that they are perched on an ice mass, a power of nature that kills all living things. Perhaps God has additionally become irritated. Later, they return to the city, and while Riley is occupied with his errand, Janai finds a photographic artist's studio. One day, they enter a plume shop, and Janai is extremely upset to find that all the plants have long kicked the bucket. Understanding that Janai is discouraged by the rotting city, Riley recommends they go camping. He convinces her that now is the ideal time to find where they can reside in solace and bounty. Soon, Riley sees a house by the lake that appears to be reasonable. The couple heads inside, and even Janai needs to concede that the spot is exceptionally lovely. Anyway, while investigating the region, they coincidentally find an elderly person named Niels, who is exceptionally feeble from the absence of food. The couple readily shares their provisions with him. Niels is stunned that there could be no different survivors and accepts that the apocalypse has come. When everything all happened, he was additionally in the city but got back to his home, where he once left his family. Janai, who was extremely glad to find one more survivor, is profoundly annoyed about Niels' day's disposition. The elderly person educates her about his day-to-day life. In his childhood, he would pass on his family for extensive stretches to bring in cash by fishing. When he returned, he found that they had changed. His child had grown up, and his better half had fallen out of affection with him since he was in every case away. He acknowledges God's will, since individuals live on the planet he made, not the reverse way around. He exhorts Janai not to surrender, for she is human and subsequently should battle despite the fact that, in the event that there is some heavenly arrangement, humankind has neglected to satisfy it. The following morning, Riley illuminates Janai that Niels has kicked a bucket. Janai is stunned by this. Riley says he found a graveyard by the lake, where he picked a spot close to Niels' family. Yet, Janai doesn't know that these individuals missed the man during his life and would love to see him now. Riley is confused by Janai's viewpoints, yet she recommends they not cover the mound by any means since nobody needs it. Riley attempts to help her to remember human traditions, and Janai suddenly believes that there may be other people who need their assistance. After getting back to the city, Janai becomes fixated on looking for different survivors. She drives door to door, marking the unfilled ones with administrative noise. Riley recommends that she is searching for answers where there are none and that, rather, they ought to attempt to capitalize on their new life. Yet Janai doesn't know if this can be called life. While Janai surges around the city, Riley wraps up building his wind turbine in the yard. Time elapses, and the couple continues to stroll around the island, and Riley keeps on shooting Janai. One day, he takes her to a cascade and says that water is consistently alive. It streams, freezes, melts, and streams again. Life tries. There is no yesterday or tomorrow here. There is just today. They need to attempt to grasp this and get by. Yet Janai interferes with his thoughts with a kiss. Later, they return to the house, and Janai sees that the water is running out. She washes the dishes in a bowl while Riley nods off. Suddenly, she sees an email on the PC. Janai opens it with fear and cries when she understands it's a photograph from Riley. Morning comes, and Riley goes to the kitchen where a large envelope addressed to him is lying on the table. He connects his water framework and opens the envelope. Inside are printed photographs of Janai, yet the young lady herself is mysteriously gone, and this stresses Riley. He surges out to find her, meeting every one of the spots they preferred. In the meantime, his framework starts working, and water streams into the house without the requirement for power. Riley continues to cruise all over the island and finally finds Janai's body drifting in a geothermal pool. Realizing that she did this deliberately, he at first also wants to take his life and jumps into the water. Yet soon, he re-emerges and climbs out. Riley cries as he sits by her body, then lays her on the grass, not understanding what to do now. Then he simply leaves, leaving the young lady by the pool. Riley gets into the vehicle, drives onto the street, and drives for quite a while without holding the wheel. Yet bit by bit, his hands lower onto the steering wheel and he firmly holds, maybe deciding to continue to live. The movie is called BOKEH, the obscured pieces of a photo that the photographer uses to highlight different pieces of the picture that they consider more critical. The director similarly features the fundamental difference between the two entirely opposed places of the last individuals on Earth. The man quickly acknowledges what is happening for all intents and purposes and expects to reside on, while the lady falls into misery and begins to look for the significance of what occurred. So what chance does humankind have for resurrection under such conditions?